Hello everybody and welcome. Thank you for joining me today for another Tuesdays with Grace. I'm Karla Jerome and I'm the head of the education department here at the Grace Company. And I'm really excited to introduce to you today a gold feature. I've already showed you some of this gold feature before in another Tuesday with Grace, but we're going to actually see how it quilts and how it relates to edge design. And I'm talking about a gold feature called Pattern Eclipse. What it does is it clips out the excess area that you don't want to be quilted, or it keeps in an area that you want to be quilted. So I'm going to show you how it works today on using it with an edge-to-edge design on your quilt. Now, I did this little star quilt. It's a tablecloth, a Christmas tablecloth, and it's a star shape. And I don't want to quilt all this negative space here. It will take too long, and what a waste. Now, if you wanted to, you could put some fabric on here and quilt out a little table runner right here or right here to not waste the fabric, but I am going to crop out the design so it's only going to sew around the star. However, I am going to have it sew off the star because it's an edge-to-edge design. So let's jump in and let me introduce to you how we're going to set up our quilt and how it's going to sew, and then I'm going to mark the next area, and then I'm going to let you go and try it at home. So notice I have my little tablet. I have everything hooked up. I've checked my cables to make sure my carriage is moving left to right, front to back, nice. And then I've made sure my area is nice and clean. I've wiped off my tracks to make sure there's no lint, and I've made sure that there's no dangling threads on it to interrupt my quilting. I've checked my belts to make sure that they're nice and tight. So just do your checklist and make sure that you're going through all those little things and check them off your checklist so that you have a nice experience as you're quilting. So let's jump in and open up our QCT5. So I'm going to just tap on my little icon here, and I'm double tapping. And now it's loading up. And it's going to ask me if my sewing machine needle is up. We want to double check, make sure it's up, and then tap on OK. You're going to hear it engage. It's going to move to make sure that the carriage can freely move. And then it's going to connect, doing its little firmware check. Now, this is my home screen. Notice that I'm using the Pro version of the software. You have to have the Pro version to get your gold card subscription. So just know that it's time to upgrade if you want all these cool features. And you can definitely upgrade from the beginnings to the Pro. It's just a software upgrade, no hardware needed, and you'll just purchase that price. And now's a great time to purchase those upgrades or even purchase the software, because through the end of December, it's 20% off. And I'm going to have a real good little special for all you who have the Pro version at the end of this segment. So stay tuned. Okay, so I'm going to quilt an edge-to-edge design, so I am going to go into my pantograph features right here. And so I'm just going to tap on my pantograph. It's going to open it up. Now, we're going to set our quilting area, and I want to make sure that I'm setting my quilting area because I'm not going to sew off my quilt as large as I need to set it. I don't want to, as you're rolling, it's going to roll inconsistent, so make sure you're setting it wider and longer to make up for that rolling, so that you don't run out of your safe area and have to reset it all the time. So let's make it wide enough. And then I'm just going to move over to my top left, and I'm going to tap right in that window there that says top left. And that set the width of my safe area. And now I'm going to move all the way across to the right side of my frame and pull the machine towards me as far as I can. This is determining the depth of how far the machine can really sew. All right, and then it's not going to sew that far because you're going to put your measurements in for your quilt. All right, so here I have what we call our safe area. So it's 80 inches by 16. That's my safe area measurements, okay? in the Pro version, we have 3 different modes to set up your edge-to-edge design. I am today going to use the Power Panto mode. The Power Panto takes the measurements of your quilt, the total width and total height, and calculates how many designs across and how many rows down. So it takes those calculations and it does all the measuring for you. So it's very nice because I am not mathematically inclined, so it works out great for me. And like I said before, we're going to sew off just a little bit on our little star. So we're going to have this nice little star and we're going to sew in this area here. So I'm going to have it sew off just about right here. So let's set it up and let's tap on Power Panto. And we're going to come up here and put our measurements in. My total width for my safe area is 81.62. And my total height, the depth that I can quilt, is 16 inches, okay? Now, I don't want to use those measurements because that's my safe area. So your quilt has to measure less than the safe area. So I'm going to have my quilt be 81.5 wide, and then I'm going to have it be 82 inches long because that's about what it is. Okay, so that's my quilt size. I'm going to use my Power Panto mode, which is the fastest way. So with the Power Panto mode, it's going to use the total width, the calculations of the total width, which is 81.5, and the total height, which is 82. And then when I select my design that I want to use, and I'm going to use this little Christmas bells design right here, and I'm going to just double tap on that, it's going to calculate how many designs will sew across and how many rows down. Right here, right above the quilt height and width, it's the sizing of the design. So each design is 6 inches tall. And I actually am working with a 19-inch machine, so I can scale it a little larger so it sews a lot faster. And so I am just going to up the sizing by tapping on my plus, and notice how the height is changing on the design and it's getting larger and larger. And I'm going to go all the way to 9 inches because I like that look. Now I can zoom in and look at it a little bit. Okay, and I can tap on my little plus, and look how cute that design is. So it's just little bells and little paisleys, and I think it's a really cute design. But then if you want to just tap right there, it'll get you out of that zoom in, zoom out screen, and you're back to your main screen, so you have all this. And so now that I've done my quilt measurements and I've set up my design to quilt, I'm ready. Now, if you want to make extra spacing between each row, you can do that. But notice I kind of have a definite line, and I don't want that to show up because the further I pull it apart, the more spacing is going to be, and it'll look like rows sewing across. It won't look as nice. So, and I can't pull it up any closer because then they'll start crossing. So just play with it and get to know, and just experiment till you get the design how you want to quilt it. So now we're going to jump in and we're going to save this design. Now I'm going to save it 2 different places. You can save it in one or the other, but it's nice to have a backup as you're quilting because sometimes it makes it a little harder for you to find that design. So I'm going to save it in this save folder right here, and I'm going to call it Tuesdays, Tuesday, and then put a space right there, and then gold card, and then enter, and see how the name, after I tapped on enter, the name of my design is right here in the file name, and then I'm going to tap on save. Okay, so now I've saved it to my patterns. That's saved as a pattern. Okay, now as I tap on sew in zones, it's going to ask you if you want to save it, and you're going to say yes. You want to save it here as well. And then you can delete them because not every quilt's going to be the same. So you'll never use these measurements again. So you'll just delete these designs or these patterns after the fact so you're not filling it up and it makes it harder for you to find your design. So it says, would you like to save this zone sewing session? And we're going to say yes. Oops, sorry. And now I'm just going to call it the same thing because it's a different file folder that it's saving it in, okay? So we can call it the same thing. And then I'm going to put the space and GC for gold card and tap on enter again and save. Get you in good practice for saving your designs. Okay, notice right here, here's my design. Now I have to be a little careful because I have stretched it out from side to side of my quilt. So when I place it, now I'm going to go into Zone Manager here and show you things. Notice that my screen's a little different. I want to show you there's two different ways that you can quilt an edge-to-edge design using the Zone Manager instructions. So you can center the design and quilt it all the way down centered, or you can use 4-point placement, which is what I'm going to show you how to use that placement today. I've showed a lot of you how to do the center placement, working all the way down. 4-point is much like using a hoop frame, but you're going to set your edges and mark them. Now, I don't have any marks yet, so I need to make those marks before I can place it. These are very important. If you have a USB disconnect, you will need a placement marking to go back to set your design on your quilt. If you have these markings, it will be really easy. If you don't, and you just go ahead and say, oh, it's over here or it's over here, and you don't make a mark, then it's going to lose it. It's going to be very hard for you to find, if you've sewn a little bit, where the design's going to start and stop. So it can really throw it off, and this will save you a lot of headaches. And then you won't have to go back and repair the design and guess and all that. And you'll spend, I'm telling you, a good long time trying to get it back because you don't want to unpick this area. So these markings, again, are extremely important. And if you think that you don't need them, you really do. Because it doesn't take that long to make them. And so why not? And just keep them there on your quilt. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to my right. And I'm going to move my machine up here to my top right. Okay, and I'm going to kind of move it in. And I want to move it down just a little bit because I don't want it to move out of my safe area. So I'm going to kind of put it right there. And see if, as I tap on my A placement, what happens. And it's going to notice how it shifted the design over and out. Well, when I set my B, I'm going to pull it back in. But notice it's down off that line. And I'm just going to make a little single stitch. That's all I'm going to do. You can tap on your single stitch right up here. They've added it to it. Just notice if you do your update, you have that nice single stitch. Or you can come here to the toolbox and use it. So either or doesn't matter. So you have a single stitch here in the toolbox and you have a single stitch up here. We're just going to use this nifty little single stitch. Okay, and I have to hit it again. So I'm going to unthread my needle to do my single stitch. It doesn't take me very long to rethread it, and it just makes it easier so that the threads don't get caught down underneath your sticker. So let's align it over here, and then let's do our little single stitch, and notice how it goes in and out. So there's my first placement. That's my A placement over here. Now I'm going to move my machine all the way across, grab another little sticker, okay, and I'm going to go all the way over here, and I don't want to go all the way outside the safe area, but I want to tack it down, and I want to go as far as I can. I don't want it to sew off my quilt, but I want it to be up above this little point, and then I'm going to tap on my B. And we're going to see if it's in the safe area again. It's got to come down just a minute. Let's come down just a tad. See, it's caught up along that top part. See, it's down right here, and it's in right here, but along this top, it's still up too high. So I want to move it down just a little bit. We'll tap on B again. and then I'll do my single stitch. Still not there. I'm just going to move it down just a little and try it again. There we go. See how I pulled it out of the safe area along the top? So just look at your design when you're doing this. And now I'll just hurry and do my little single stitch. Okay, and I didn't have it threaded, so now I'm going to just move back here because now I get to open up my gold features. Okay, and I am going to crop. I'm going to keep in my design rather than keep out, because I want it to sew within my little triangle section of my tablecloth. All right, so now it's all threaded and I have my A and my B markings, okay? So if something happened and I had a shutdown, or I had one of my cords disconnect, or I had to turn off my automation without those markings, now I can go and remark them and my design will line up and I'll be able to continue sewing, okay? So that's my A and B on my first marking. Okay, so now C and D are optional, okay? So I'm not going to worry about those on this first little section, but maybe further down I will. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to the plugins. That's where you'll find your gold feature. I'm going to tap on plugin, and I notice that this is a fabric composite feature and pattern Eclipse. That's pattern Eclipse is what we're going to tap on and use. So it's preset to default, so I want to set it rather than keep out, because if I did the keep out, it did sew around here, and when it's sew here. I want it to keep in, because I want to crop out and have it sew in this area, so I want to keep the design in. So I'm going to set that, and I'm going to set it to sew continuous, but no border. On your big edge-to-edge designs, you don't want it to sew a border, or it's going to sew back over that border 1,000 times. So do not check the border, and you will have some starts and stops, but it's worth it to not have to sew all of this area. So let's jump in and start cropping out our design. So I want to start up here, right above my little tip. And then I'm going to tap on this. It says Add Plus. And notice my little red dot. Now it's up and off my little diamond shape, so I'm just going to move it down and out and pull it forward as far as I can, because I want to come out of what's going to sew. So I'm going to stretch it down as far as I can, and notice that I'm off of my quilt, and I'm going to go Add. So see how far down I came? I didn't probably need to come that far, but I did. So now I'm going to move across. I'm just going to use this as my guide all the way over and come up off my quilt again and tap on the Add again. And now I'm just going to go back up to the top. See, it looks like I'm connected, but I'm not. I haven't gone all the way to the top. It's just pulled that line out. So if you don't go back up to the top, it's going to sew all of this section. So we want to go back up to the top and connect them and say Add. So notice that my little dot is up there, and now they're connected. Again, if you don't connect them, if you don't do that last one, then you just have to look for that little dot to make sure, because then it's going to sew all this other area and you don't want it to. Okay, so now I have my design set and I'm ready to go. If you want to see what a preview looks like, just tap on preview. It's kind of cool. And that's what my design is going to sew. Pretty cool. So I'm just going to tap on this and get out. And let's go and sew it. And let's say, okay. Now it's going to crop out all of this excess area, and look, just what we wanted to sew, okay? So now I don't have any trims right here because it's just going to sew up. So now I'm just going to move my machine down to where I think it's going to start. I'm going to come in here to my toolbox. I'm not a big fan of the pull bobbin, but if you are, be my guest, you pull the bobbin. When I have a single stitch in my toolbox I can use, and then I'll just do it again. I think it's a little faster, and I just like to get it done. So now I'm ready to tap on sew and let it do its thing. Okay, see, it's moving to where it's going to start quilting, and I was way off, but that's okay. We're sewing up and off the quilt, It's all good. And then you can cut your threads, but then stand back and let it do its thing. You know, with this Eclipse, it makes it so quick and so easy to quilt those odd-shaped quilts. I mean, where's it been? I have done so many of them and had to make guesses as to what I'm going to do to figure it out. And see how pretty it's quilting? Notice how it changes, and it'll come back up and finish the top. Now it's going to go down and around. It's going to finish sewing that area. Then we're going to let it quilt the next section after we mark it. And then on this part, I'm going to cut my thread, and then I'm going to adjust the height. Notice right here, there was a lot of balance. That meant my take-up rail, and it was something that I didn't look at before, was up too high. It needs to just be a finger width up off the arm of your sewing machine. So we're going to adjust that before we do this next little section. And I'm going to roll it just a little bit, and we're going to remark. So first of all, I'm going to take you through the marking of the next zone, okay? The next section of the quilt. Because the automation knows where to place those markings, okay? And you don't, and I don't want you to guess, okay? It knows everything that you need to do, so just follow the instructions. Okay, notice that I cut my thread, and I'm ready to now tap on finish zone. That's really important that you cut your threads. Now I can tap on finish zone, and it asks you these questions. Have you completed sewing this zone? Are you done? If you haven't, then you want to go in and repair your pattern, finish completing it, and then pull your threads up, and then you're ready. And then we're going to say yes, okay? So it's going to engage. Now it's going to move all the way over to this side and tell me where to mark the next zone. It's going to do it all for me. Very cool. Just let it do its thing. Let it move all the way over here. All right, and I'm going to put my little sticker for my next zone right under that little foot. Then if you want to, you can unthread it. Makes it a little easier, okay? And then tap on your single stitch. See, I have a single stitch now down here that I can tap on rather than up here. And this is what they say, mark the zone. Now, there's different ways to mark it, but I like the sticker and the tape method. It gives me a more accurate marking. And so I'm going to just tap on single stitch. Now, give it a minute. It's a little slow. All right, so I have my little hole right there. See? My little hole right there. Now I'm going to tap on, okay? So that was 2A. Now we want to say next mark. It's going to move all the way over to the other side. Just let it do its thing. It's just gonna wander on down to the next side, and we're gonna mark it. And then you could do C and D if you wanted to after you roll it. This is a really easy method, and if you have a border on your quilt and you want to do an edge-to-edge design, 4-point placement is going to be the placement that you're going to use to quilt your quilt. And it'll do a beautiful job, and God, it just makes nice work of it. And so now I'm going to tap on single stitch again, not this one up here, but this one right here where we're marking the zone. Tap on it. Give it a second. Okay, it made my 2B, and then when it says done and the continue is green, you can say tap on continue, and it asks you if you're done marking all your zones. If you had a hoop frame, you might have more zones to mark, okay? But we are done, and we're going to say yes. And then now the machine's going to move to where you can roll your quilt, and just tap on OK. So now it's just going to move up out of your way. Now, let's talk about rolling our quilt. So I'm going to do a couple little adjustments, but you can actually roll, because we have this mark, you can actually roll it up past that point. So it doesn't matter, because this mark will remark it. So that's what I'm going to do. So let me make my adjustments, and then we'll jump in. And so just that next little section so that you get a good idea. And then I'm going to let you go and play with your automation. So now I can roll my quilt because I've loosened it, and then I'm going to adjust it. So this mark, leave it there just in case something happens. And we lose a mark, okay? I don't want you to miss your stickers, but see, notice I'm moving it up past the foot. It's okay. We can go up past, but not too far up, because we don't want to sew too far up the design. And then we're just going to lock it into place, both of them. And I'm going to move this back down. I just didn't want it on the dirty floor, so that's why we did what we did. And I'm going to get my wrinkles all out. Okay. Just kind of play with it and make it all nice and smooth. And pull this portion out too. And my quilt. I have a 5-pointed star. Okay. Come on. There we go. There we go. Oh, all these little threads coming up. So now I want to lock this into place because I want it to be kind of straight. So let's see what we can do to improve that. Let me lock this back into place because I want to use these lines to line it up and make it look good. Okay. So now I can lock this back. Now, you want to tack down the edges so that as the machine sews back and forth, you're going to tack down your edges. So that's what I'll do next. And I'm going to show you how to take your machine out of the automation and tack down the edges. Okay. And then we're going to mark and quilt the next area, okay? So now I've rolled my quilt, and yes, I've rolled it back past. So I've made all my adjustments, and now I'm ready to tap on, and it's asking me to roll my fabric, or move my fabric to A, okay? And I'm going to say, okay. And yes, I have, okay. All right. So now notice, instead of A being on that side, because it's sewing back and forth, A is on this side. You can set it to be uniform back and forth however you want to quilt, okay? So I'm not going to mark my quilt just yet because I want to come in and tack this down. And I want it to be really careful that I do that. And I'm going to come in here and tap on my toolbox. Inside my toolbox, there's Release Sewing Machine. This is going to release your machine. And now notice that my screen has changed and it's regulated precise. Now I can use my buttons and tack down my sides so I'm not going to sew off, because as I sew off, I don't want it to catch and get caught underneath my quilt and rip it and throw off the design. So what a headache that is. And just know that I've learned from experience, it's really important to tack down your quilt. All right, so now I can use my buttons, and so I can come over here, pull up my bottom thread, and it's a little short there, but I'm just going to tack down the rest of the way. It's kind of wavy, I'm sorry, because of my hand. There we go. Okay, so that's one side, and now I'm just going to hurry and tack down the other side. I'm not going to worry about these yet, because the next roll I will worry about them. So I'm just going to hurry and tack down this because I don't know how far it's going to sew. And always bring up your bottom thread. It doesn't take that long, and you don't want dangling threads. They can get caught in the wheels of your sewing machine, and boy, it can really throw off your design and your stitching if you leave your threads dangling. So now I'm ready to tap on. Okay, and now it's going to reconnect to the automation, and now I can go and mark my next area. So we're going to go over here to, oh, we want to do A first, sorry. A's on this side, it changed on me, and so I need to come over to A. Okay, and I want to put my needle, align my needle over that hole, and tap on A. It moved it because it shifted it out, but it's going to come back in. So just wait. And then we're going to align it right over that hole I made in this sticker, B, and it's going to pull it in. See how it pulled it in? That's what those markings will do. They will make it so that you're quilting straight down your quilt. Okay, now I have my design placed on my quilt. It's going to sew correctly, but now I have to again crop it out. So one more time, we're going to come up here and we're going to tap on plugins, our pattern Eclipse, okay? And this time we want to get rid of this old area that we've done. We don't want to re-sew that, so we want to get rid of that, okay? And then we want to move over here, okay? Because we don't want it to sew, we just want it to sew in this area. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to come off my quilt, and I'm going to tap on add. This one's going to be a little different though. I'm going to go all the way down off my quilt, tap on add again, go all the way across because I'm out of my area, and then I want it to come over here, tap on add again, but I'm not connected. See, my little dot is down here. I have to reconnect it back up here. I want to go up here, add plus, and then I want to go across the top here and connect it. And I come down here. Okay, keep going till I've connected it. There we go. So I've carved out my design. And now if you want to see a little preview of what the next area is going to look like. Oh, notice I did keep out instead of keep in. So I want to tap on this, and I want to do keep in. Have to remember that it resets every time. So now we can tap on our preview and see that's the next area that's going to quilt. So we are ready to jump in, and we're going to tap on this, and we're going to say okay. And this is what you're going to do all the way down your quilt. You have a start, so I'll get a start over here because this is the A section. So I'm just going to do my little toolbox, my little single stitch, pull my thread up, and tap on sew. Yeah, pattern Eclipse is so much fun. Now it's just going to sew this little section. And then I'm going to mark my next 2 areas so I can take the quilt and finish it off. And I chose the red thread because I thought it wouldn't be too busy, because this little gray is kind of a busy design, and that's why I chose the red thread. And it's just going to turn out really cute, and I can't wait to show you the finished product on another segment. We've done a lot this year with Tuesdays with Grace. And I appreciate you joining me, because I've learned so much with all the questions that you have had. And you've inspired me. You are so creative, and I appreciate all the emails that I get. And if you have questions, and if you want to know how to do something, email me. My email is Karla with a K, Karla @graceframe.com. And I love getting emails from customers. And show off your quilts. We want to see them. We're going to have a new format on our website where you can register and you'll get updates and everything so that you can find everything you need, and you can join and be a part of the Tuesdays with Grace and everything that we will have going on next year. But notice how it's just sewing this section first, and it will jump around as it's sewing because you've cropped out some section. So rather than going all the way out here and all the way down here, it's going to sew how it thinks it should sew. So you may think it should sew differently, but it knows better. But notice how nicely it fit together right up here, how the design is. Yeah, it didn't cross over or anything, and the spacing's nice and correct. That's because we went and did our markings, and we were very careful with keeping our markings there. If you'll do that, I can't tell you how important those markings are. They really are important. So if you are quilting right now, edge-to-edge designs without your markings, then you're probably getting them done in one day. If you needed to stop for the day, those 2 markings will go and help you reset your design for the next area. So we'll do another segment on that, marking all the way down our quilt and resetting it, coming back in for the next day and showing you how it's done. But that's why we saved our pattern, our design twice. Okay, it's almost done sewing. Just this last little area and one more little paisley. And because I tacked it down, it's able to sew off back and forth, and I don't have to worry about the foot getting caught. Okay, there we go. We're done. And notice I didn't check my tension very well. We need to just tighten it up just a little bit, but I'll tweak that. Just recognize that it would have been one step that I should have jumped in and done. I was just so excited to show you all these cool features that I didn't do it. So let's quickly mark our next area. I'm going to come in here, do my single stitch, and then do it again. All right, and then I'm going to cut my threads. Let's quickly do our next mark, okay? So we want to tap on finish zone. We've cut our threads. Yes, we have completed. Now it's going to go over here. This will now be A, and that will be B. See how nice it is? You don't have to guess at all where to mark your quilt. It's going to do it all for you. And I'm just going to hurry and unthread it so I can do my little single stitch, tack it down really good. Now we're on zone 3A. We're going to do our single stitch. Give it a second. And now we can tap on next mark. It's going to move over here. Now, After I get these 2 marks, I can quit for the day. But you have to get these 2 marks or your 1 mark for your next zone marked before you quit. So if you're using center placement, it'll only be 1 mark. But because I'm using 4-point, there are 2. So just quickly do these markings, and then you can go and take your drink, take your bathroom break, go to bed, sleep on it, and wake up knowing that you're going to be able to start up tomorrow with the correct placement and make your design cohesive all the way down. So let me hurry and mark this one, and we'll do our single stitch again. Give it a second. Don't think it's not thinking. It is thinking about it. It's just a little slow. And now it says we're done and we can continue. And now it will move back to where we're supposed to roll our quilt. But now we can shut it down and say, okay. So now it's going to move back down and move back up because I did the B. But anyway, we'll let it do its thing. Okay. So thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I hope that if you love quilting, that you will think about the automation. There's so many ways to quilt out there, and the automation just helps you make those perfect, beautiful quilts every time. Now, it may not be for everybody, but I think it is. It's just one of those great techniques that you can use to really perfect. And you can use both methods. If you like to free motion quilt or you like ruler work, you can do both. I have several quilts that I have used automation in one area, and I've done free motion in others. Another thing that you can do with the automation is you can buy the less expensive, the beginnings, and it will get you started. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, and you can't use these wonderful features, but it will get you started at a great price point. And it's 20% off this month through the first of the year. So make sure that you're looking at the website and seeing all the cool things that we have on sale. Go to graceframe.com and see all of our specials. If you are deciding to jump in and add the automation to it, now's a great time. But for you Tuesdays with Grace customers, if you have the automation and the pro features and you want an extra gold card, we are going to give you 30% off. So if you either call our 800 number or you log in online and shop and put this code in, you will get 30% off on your gold card. Now you can buy 1 or 2. They don't end until the 1 year's time, and you don't have to put both codes in all at once. You just use one at a time. But now's a great time to purchase so that you can keep these great features up and going on your automation. So the code is GC, G as in George, C as in Charlie, T as in Tom. That's gold card TWG. So it's GCTWG, and you will get 30% off. And this is good through December 21st when this is airing through December 31st of this year, 2021. So that's G as in George, C as in Charlie, T as in Tom, W as in Walter, and G as in George. That's Gold Card Tuesdays with Grace. So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to next week and showing you many more features that the Gold Card has. And I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.